Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, I just got done with a live stream that I did on what will be my yesterday. I came across this article here that I thought I would go over with you all. And the reason is this. If you think that this is bad, ladies and gentlemen, you better think again. It's going to be much worse. One of the questions that I was asked during the live stream today, and by the way, thank you very much to everyone that joined because I had an awful lot of fun. Time just flew right by. So thank you very much, and thank you very much to our new community members that subscribed during that live stream. Thank you for being there, and thank you for joining an awesome community. But ladies and gentlemen, what we need to talk about is this. Things are not nearly as bad now as they will get. All right, I was explaining to people during our live stream that inflation is going to cause food shortages for those that cannot afford the food. And think about it. Whenever something is in a shortage, does the price go up or down? So I will stand by the word that food shortages will continue to get worse. Why? Because food prices are going to get higher. The price of everything is going to get higher, and it is going to affect mainly those people that work for a living. It will affect mainly those people that live paycheck to paycheck. And it will affect mostly the working poor. Those people that are now at work right now wondering how they're going to put food on the table tomorrow because they don't have any food put away or enough food put away to sustain them and their families for even a week or for even a few days. And that's why they have to rely on food banks. And you see this picture here. You think this is bad? You just wait, ladies and gentlemen. Think about this. Right now, the United States, among other nations, are sanctioning other nations. What happens when these nations start to sanction us? Let's talk about Russia for a little bit, okay? And for those of you that get triggered, I'm not taking sides either way. I'm never on the side of war, ever, no matter what. Okay, but I digress. Right now we're sanctioning Russia on whatever it is, right? Whatever. They can't use the dollar, whatever. What if Russia starts to sanction those nations that rely on it for the goods and the resources that Russia exports? What if Russia right now said, we're not going to export anything else to anyone except to those countries that we want to do business with? And believe me, the United States is not one of those countries that right now Russia wants to do business with. Believe me that the Western nations are not those countries, or NATO nations are not those countries that Russia right now wants to do business with. Maybe in the future they will, but right now they don't. What if Russia said, we're just not going to export to any of you? And what if China said, we're not going to export to any of you? Do you think things will get better or worse? A lot of people say that we're headed towards World War III. But do you really not think that we are already fighting World War III? It's just that for us, for the lucky ones right now, it's not kinetic. It's just financial and resource driven. That is the war that we're fighting right now. And do you think with the way that the geopolitical spectrum is going throughout the world, do you think that things will get better for Western nations? And specifically, I mean the United States. Obviously, this is where I live. You think that things will get better for us here with the way that things are going? Do I need to remind you that Saudi Arabia, who was the primary reason for the dollar having the strength that it has had for all of these decades, do I need to remind you that they've signed an agreement with Russia where Russia will now provide them with military backup and with military arms? The same contract that they had with us, the United States, ever since 1973, which is when the petrodollar was born. Meaning what? Meaning that if there is no need for the US dollar for other nations in order to do bilateral trading with other nations using the US dollar via the SWIFT system, that means that the dollar is going to be worth a lot less. And that means that things are going to cost us a lot more. Why? Because of what I said a minute ago. Because we import almost everything that we use here in the United States. Think about it. Look around your house. What do we not import? We even import food, believe it or not. I was talking about this on one of my previous live streams, and I didn't know that we send China apples so that they can turn it into apple juice and send it back to us. Isn't that crazy, ladies and gentlemen? China and India make up about 80% of all of the ingredients that we here need in the United States in order to make the pharmaceuticals that we rely on an everyday basis. That's not a very good formula for a country which is the most medicated country in the world. These United States is the most medicated country in the world. So as the dollar continues to weaken, things are going to continue to cost more of your labor, meaning you're going to have to work more for the same things that you used to get in the same quantity. So things are going to get worse, ladies and gentlemen. It's just not looking good. The US dollar is running out of steam. And why is that? Well, let me tell you why right now. Because the United States government has abused the power of having the dollar as the world reserve currency. They've abused it by weaponizing it against other nations, and they've abused it by overprinting it, by printing way more than what they should print in order to have a stable economy. So things are going to get worse. But the question is this: are you going to be one of those people right here that is in a food line because you failed to prepare today? And I would caution you that, trust me, you don't want to be one of those people. Be one of those people that can help others because you prepared ahead of time, instead of having to wait for hours in a line for a box of food. Now, would I do it if I had to? Absolutely. There is no pride that would ever get in the way of me making sure that my family was fed. But what I'm saying is this: you have time now to prepare. Simple as that. You have time now to prepare. Don't use your income as an excuse. The time is now that if you need to get that second job, that if you need to go and drive an Uber or do DoorDash or deliver pizzas, whatever it is, the time is now. The time has come for you to do that if you need to, in order to make sure that you can stock up now. Because I am convinced that eventually we will need our preps. And I understand some people are saying there's not going to be a food shortage. Well, I went over this in my live stream, but let me go ahead and go over it with you again real quick. When there is a shortage of something, what happens to the price? It goes up. So if the price of everything is going up, there are two factors involved. One, the government is printing too much money, so there's a lot more dollars out in the system chasing the same amount of goods. Two, that the same amount of dollars are still in the system, but there's just a shortage of that thing and it's going down in price. Well, my belief is that eventually all of the dollars that the US government has printed in the last 2 years will find its way to the consumer products that we rely on an everyday basis. And some of those dollars, in my opinion, have found their way to those consumer products, like food, but not all of them. Which tells me that there is a shortage of many of those things that have gone up in price. Shortage in rubber. What happens to car tires? They're a lot more expensive now. Shortage in paper goods. A few months back, I talked about how the amount of shipping, how much it costs to ship wood pulp from Brazil to the United States has gone up so much that the price has escalated in paper goods. Shortage in chicken. We all know what's going on in chickens. With chickens, right? With this flu thing going on with chickens, eggs. So the prices of all of these things are going up. But what I'm here to tell you today is that it's going to be a lot worse than this. If you think this is bad, it's going to be a lot worse. This is a real short article, so let's go ahead and go through it really quick, because you know that I really like reading these articles because it gives me an insight on someone else's perspective. And it's always nice to have someone else's opinion or insight on how they see things, because we can learn from each other, ladies and gentlemen. Here it says that food bank demand soars again as inflation crushes the working poor. The highest inflation print in 4 decades have forced some Americans to flood food banks and pantries. The Wall Street Journal reports that Forgotten Harvest in Detroit has experienced a dramatic increase in demand. Since December, demand at the food bank has increased from 25 to 45%. Those are not small numbers, ladies and gentlemen. The middle class in America is being forgotten. In March alone, when energy and food prices soared, demand jumped 30% over the prior month. Incredible. Just wait till summertime. Oh my goodness. Christopher Ivy, a spokesman for the Detroit Food Bank, said the need is growing quickly as gas prices are continuing to rise. People are deciding to put gas in their cars to go to work instead of buying food, and now relying on food banks to feed them and their families. But my question is this: what are those people going to do when the food banks run out of food? He says, as you know, there are shortages in the grocery store, and the cost of the commodity goods are going up and up and up. Adding, this is putting pressure on food banks. The hunger crisis is countrywide, with a network of 200 food banks and 60,000 food pantries and meal programs. Feeding America published new data that found demand for its food assistance in February increased in nearly every food bank. I think 85%. Yep, 85%. That was a 20% increase versus January's number. So month over month, they had an increase in demand of 20%. Allison Kaur, the director of the Food Law and Policy Clinic at the University of California, Los Angeles, said this health crisis sparked food insecurity, and today's inflation environment has made things worse. Well, I would have to disagree that it was the health crisis that sparked the food insecurity. I would say that it was the policies and mandates that were driven by government that sparked many, if not all, of the problems that we're having today with food and consumer products not being made and or able to get to the shelf. She says you will continue to see folks come into the food banks who are seniors, who are undocumented individuals, and persons who suffer from disabilities. But you're also seeing folks who are just kind of trying to cobble together jobs who may suffer from chronic and persistent unemployment. Working poor households have been battered by inflation at a 4-decade high. The price of food in March was 10% versus the same month last year. Inflation has outpaced wage growth, sending real wages negative. And ain't that the truth? What does she mean by sending real wages negative? I like to explain these things because some people don't know, and it's okay if you don't know. What's not okay is if you don't know, but you don't want to learn. So let me tell you what she means by saying sending real wages negative. Let's say, for example, that you make X amount of dollars and you got a 3% raise that year. Okay, so you got a 3% raise on your salary year over year. But let's say that inflation on the things that you need to live went up by 10%. What that wage increase, all right, when you take the difference between your wage increase and what inflation really is, you really got a 7% cut in pay. Because even with that 3% wage increase, you're still 7% below water. It's still costing you 7% more to operate your household this year than it did last year, even with your wage increase. So real wages really went down, even though you got a raise. I hope that makes sense. Also, the personal savings rate has collapsed to its lowest level since December of 2014, an ominous sign that consumer is stressed. Higher food bank demand has put pressure on its organization's supply chains because of increased food costs, rising freight costs, and food availability. The perfect storm is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. The price of everything is going up, making the price of everything go up higher. And to finish it off, this gentleman says, we have had to work harder to secure the food needed to support the community. And he says that today's inflationary environment and supply chain disruptions have reduced the amount of food donated. So people are not donating as much food as they normally do. Okay, number one. The government isn't giving as much money as they normally did because the CARES Act ran out. Number two. But their input costs, meaning their overhead, the price of gasoline, the price of heating oil, the price of electricity, has all gone up. The perfect storm for these food banks to start running out, ladies and gentlemen. You need to prepare now. Get a second job if you have to, because you will definitely thank yourself later if you do. I'm so proud of one of our community members, and I've already mentioned this on a previous live stream, but she said, I went out and got a job doing DoorDash while my kids are in school, and I'm using that money to prep. You can do it. If she could do it, you can do it. What's important to understand is that lower income households are unraveling as consumer prices are historically high levels. It's a sign that some households are at the breaking point amid threats of stagflation. And for those of you that don't know what stagflation is when you have high inflation and at the same time high unemployment or high underemployment, meaning that people cannot get jobs that pay them enough to live. All right, ladies and gentlemen? So do you think that things are going to get better? That's my question to you. Please leave it in the comments. Have a conversation with each other. Do you think that things are going to get better anytime soon? And if you don't think that things are going to get better anytime soon, what are you doing about it? You don't have to go out there and get $20,000 worth of preps from one week to the other. All you have to do is go out there and slowly but steadily prepare. Put away food. Put away all of those things that it is that you eat, that you need, that you use on an everyday basis that give you a sense of normalcy. Because normalcy is what we will all want once normalcy is gone. And as long as you can put food in your children's bellies, a lot better than hearing them tell you that they're hungry.